HERMAN MANYORA is a political analyst. He's been here on the show many times before. He's here on the show again this morning. HERMAN, good morning.
Morning, Chu.
How are you doing?
Maybe fine.
Maybe fine.
Maybe fine. Yeah.
Not sure.
You can never quite tell.
You can never. You're maybe you're okay.
Maybe I'm okay, and for which I would thank God.
As far as you can tell, you're fine.
I'm fine.
Good.
Yes.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you, sir.
CT has the day's proverb, and this week's proverbs will be from
Jamhuri
ya Muungano.
Yes.
Tanzania.
Yes. United Republic. Whose president is Samia Suluhu Hassan. They even have a vice president. The vice president. Yes, they do. It's called Philip Mpango. Okay? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
There's a gentleman who has a plan. Okay. They even have a prime minister. Now this one is even more interesting. It's called Kassim Majaliwa. And Ikawa. So
Majaliwa, yeah.
And Ikawa kuna mpango.
Kuna
suluhu.
Yeah, kuna suluhu. All these things, these are possibilities that exist. This is a lovely executive, isn't it? They have you have a speaker, Tuli Action, and a CJ, Ibrahim Hamis Juma. Amazing country, this one. The proverb today: unknown information is like a dark night.
Unknown information is like a dark night.
Yes.
HERMAN,
Looks like.
what do you make of that proverb? What's your interpretation of it?
Well, just that maybe, I don't know. Unknown information is like a dark night. Yeah. You go in the dark, you don't see what you get. I mean, you don't know what is there. Perhaps. I'm not very good with these proverbs, you know.
Actually,
I didn't sit long enough with my grandmother. Or my grandfather.
I think the beauty of Proverbs is this. When we ask for your opinion, it is not possible for you to be wrong. Because that is your opinion.
Oh, yeah, sure.
That is your interpretation.
Yeah, correct,
Yes.
correct.
He has none, though. That's the thing.
On this one, I have none. Which again is normal.
Which is also normal to have none.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. But you're good with kudadisi maswala ya kisiasa.
Kudadisi maswala ya kisiasa.
Hapo
ni chai kwangu.
Very good. Now, in the last couple of days, the president has been touring the region of Nyanza, and we've been seeing the headlines. The headline in the nation: falling apart, Ruto and Gachagua in a back and forth over shareholding. This whole issue of shareholding, the president says it is primitive and backward for anybody to imagine that any region of Kenya cannot get development on account of how they voted. That is not correct. While the DP maintains that those who joined us late should not expect much at the expense of Kenya Kwanza loyalists, will continue giving good jobs to those who stood with us from the beginning.
Correct.
Higher. This headline: will Ruto excel in Nyanza where many have failed?
It's a big question.
Yeah.
That is the question.
When we say that many have failed, who are we talking about?
Everybody else since Kenyatta's time. To fail mean they have failed to, after Jaramogi fell out with Jomo Kenyatta, there never was quite a time when the Luos and the government were together, or Kenyatta were together. And then came Moi. Moi tried. He used all tactics. He tried to balance one region against the other. He came up with this idea of telling South Nyanza people, then not South Nyanza, then Migori, and I don't know what. You've been subjugated for too long. You've been dominated by Kisumu and especially Siaya. This is your time. We had people from there. He wouldn't remember them. He comes from Kwanyos, Okikia Mayos, and from the Subas we had. I can't remember who. So Nyakiamo. Yes. But it didn't work. Then, of course, that has been like that, really. And basically, when it comes to whenever there was voting or alignment, they never quite align themselves with the government. And this is what that person means. That would Ruto. It's too early in the morning. Will Ruto this time round? There where others failed.
What do you make so far? This is
depends
on the fourth or fifth trip that he's making to the region.
Luos don't hate Ruto. Let's begin there. Before Uhuru and Raila got to work together, Ruto wasn't quite a darling of the... There was no love lost between the Luos and Uhuru Kenyatta and his father, and even Moi for that matter. But from where I sit and what I know is that the Luos really have nothing against Ruto. They will have no problem voting for him if conditions and circumstances allowed. This is to say, for example, let's say Raila is not running and is not interested in politics. Ruto will have a lot of votes from Luo Nyanza. A lot of votes.
What's the probability of that?
Oh, very high.
Of Raila not running
not running.
not interested?
Not running, the probabilities are very high. Not interested, a little low. Yeah, but there, nevertheless. Yes.
And that is the condition that you then give.
Yeah, if Raila is
for Ruto to get a
not
chance.
running and is not interested, Ruto will have a field day in Luo Nyanza. A field day. You'll get almost a lot of the votes.
So
let's say he's facing Kalonzo, for example. Ruto facing Kalonzo, and Raila is not. He's not interested. Ruto will get over 70% of the votes of Nyanza. That's a fact. That's how bad it is for those who think Ruto will not go back.
So they wouldn't give Kalonzo?
No, he would not have the muscle to get it. And they will be wondering, why is Raila not supporting Kalonzo? That alone is enough to make Ruto go in and get almost everything. Yeah, but I think that's the situation. And Raila could also support Ruto openly. Why not? He could say, well, let's work together. We were together in ODM and take it. And again, there could be constitutional amendments that give Raila a more attractive prime minister position. And then he says, I'm going for prime minister, or I'm supporting Kalonzo for prime minister. Let Ruto be president. There's nothing really difficult. The bottom line is, the Luos do not hate Raila, then they do not hate William Ruto. That to me, but a Luo is here, he can tell us.
Well, I don't know that he would speak for all of them, but...
No, I most certainly cannot speak for all of them, but remember, you talk about someone who comes from a community that have been neighbors and in-laws of the Luos for as long as the Luos have been. So, there are many shared interests in those communities, many. And the thing that makes Ruto the contender that Herman is saying is simply this. In any political tussle, what is at the heart of the fight is the people's heart. Now, any leader who doesn't get it will not go far. Raila Odinga understands it very well. His late father understood it very well. Your power actually rests in the people and the support of the people. William Ruto understands it very well. Now, so long as someone, irrespective of their political position at a certain given in time, has the understanding and the capacity to pull people to himself, that person will be powerful. That person will be very, very, very powerful. You only need to look at some of these independent candidates we've had in this country. There are not many, but they're there. People who defy the political affiliations of a certain region stand and get voted. It's people. Simple principle. If the people support you, that's it. You've got it.
I think one of the questions that comes in here then very clearly is that it could be in the Nyanza region, or it could be anywhere in the country. That then what is it that endears people to a leader that then you would be able to throw your support behind them wholeheartedly in the same manner in which you did with the passion for somebody who was from your neck of the woods? That we see that the support for Raila Odinga in his backyard and in other parts of the country is very, very strong. And we're saying that there is a possibility, and we've seen it now with the visits to Nyanza, there's a possibility that people could lean in with this passion to the president, whether it is today or for the future. What is it that grabs the heart of people when it comes to giving their allegiance to a particular leader? And what would change that this almost near sycophancy that you have for one particular individual could then switch up to another? What is that thing then that President William Ruto would then be able to go into Nyanza today, to go into another passion area in another part of the country and say, it is me, what is on the table for offer? And that could then lend information as to then what kind of leader Kenyans are actually looking for or continue to look for. What is that thing? according to you, Herman, that would say, well, people could switch very easily? Why?
You know, it begins, first of all, at the local level. Is they are your people, and your people means they are your people, which means you speak the same language, you come from the same area, and you are the person they see, and they see themselves, and they see their God. You know, you are that kind of person. You are charismatic, and history could play a role in this. You could be the son of someone like Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, the son of Jomo Kenyatta, and so history could play a part of it, or circumstances could also propel you into that position. But usually, when somebody has achieved that position and they're charismatic, it is also not very easy to transfer that. But if people believe in you in the manner they believe Raila, it is very easy. Raila can transfer his following. He did that to Kibaki. If he said this time round we are giving Kalonzo, I believe a lot of his people will give Kalonzo. There will be very few people defying that. If he says we are working with Ruto, so be it. And for Ruto, you see, Ruto has captured the imagination of the country. Basically because he's playing at the heart of what really ails the people. Last year it was about the small man, the hustler, the bottom up, the mainstreaming of the people who have hitherto not been anything in this country. Of course, it hasn't worked, but it really played out well, and it is still holding for him. But above all, Ruto is good with his mouth. And sometimes the leaders have even used demagoguery. Somebody can be like a demagogue, and he knows how to pull the people, you know, by sweet words and how he delivers them. So for Ruto is basically, and a number of things work for Ruto, by the way, you know.
Like?
Compared to many of these other leaders, he's younger than them, he's more energetic, you know, power of communication, his daredevil politics. You know, daredevil politicians attract a lot of following. By the way, this is how Raila accumulated his following, by daring the devil, by being bold. So for Ruto to have defied Moi openly and gotten away with it, that makes him very attractive to the ordinary voter. And it would not be a problem. You see, even when he's in Nyanza, even when Uhuru was there, even you think Uhuru would have been as relaxed, as at ease in Nyanza before the handshake as Ruto is. You can see how much he is at ease. He can even say some things that very few people outside Nyanza can dare say. So those qualities endear him to people.
Surely there must be something else beyond charisma of a man who would then be able to go into a place and woo people over. Because, you know, as they say, once the honeymoon is over, then you want to know what else does this person have to offer. Well, so there must be something else rendering that.
Some people also have deep pockets, and their hands do not hesitate to enter those pockets. And Ruto is one of those people. He has deep pockets, he's generous, and he can buy people a cup of tea, which is not bad.
I haven't considered this for a second. I was looking at this tour, and something which struck me. You see, with previous governments, as you correctly say, there was a clear understanding that these are people whom the people of Luo Nyanza did not particularly like or were not endeared towards. And Raila or his father, if there was any indication that they did not like these leaders, the people will respond accordingly. Yes. This tour, if you look at the governors, just look at the welcome he has received. It tells me that Raila gave a nod.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no way the sort of reception that I'm seeing would actually take place if he had not given a nod and said, it is fine.
That frightened. That's what I've been seeing. That makes me believe, and I've been saying it in public, regarding Gachagua and Kalonzo Musyoka should be very afraid.
They are on the outside in this one.
I have been carrying the view, sometimes a little privately, but once in a while I let it off, that there's a deal between Raila and Ruto. And so Muga is very right. That kind of thing that played out could not very easily have played out if Raila had not given his nod.
So a handshake took place.
There's something has taken place.
We're just going through the motions.
The only problem is, you see, Raila owes his team so much that if it came out openly immediately that he was dealing with Ruto, that sense of betrayal, he may not be able to carry it. On the other hand, Ruto has a problem. the main shareholder in his government is not a small boy, and he does not mince his words. Rigathi Gachagua will cause a lot of trouble for Ruto if that deal
became public.
But I suspect there's a deal between the two, and the casualties will be Kalonzo Musyoka and Rigathi Gachagua. I have no doubt about it. And I can see the man who is not dramatic, the man who people say is a coward, what? Just like Kibaki, the beneficiary could be people like Mudavadi. Yeah, that's how this politics works. Yeah.
Peter Kadikati.
Because as a person who moves close to Raila, I can tell you, I've never seen Raila having anything against Mudavadi.
No, he doesn't.
Despite what Mudavadi has been doing, running away from Raila, Raila still has a soft spot for him.
Odd, isn't it?
I see.
It's very odd because even the time when Mudavadi apparently left the association, Raila still kept very close tabs.
Yeah. He has a soft spot for him. And even Uhuru had a soft spot for him. Maybe he had played these cards well. So I think, looking at the Nyanza tour, what plays out confirms some of what some things people have been feeling, inside them, that Raila and Ruto have a deal.
They're working together.
They have a deal.
It's you go and make your case.
Yeah, make your case.
I will not stop you from making your case. Yeah. And on the other hand, let's try and see how we can solidify or, bring this handshake of ours to light.
Yes.
Let's send people to Bomas, let them talk. Let's end up somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere.
Where we...
There could be something small for me and for my people.
And it's also the people who have forced us to talk. Religious leaders said, let's talk. Civil society said, let's talk. Foreigners said, let's talk. They're the ones who made us talk. Let's just talk now.
And we can share the little there is.
And plus, let's make sure that these discussions are anchored in something that can solidify our conversations.
Our conversations.
Yes,
but the bottom line, what I see is a clear route for Ruto in 2027. And that is the deal. That you can go up to 2027 and by some arrangement, you will have no problem getting back after 2027. In return, maybe there will be a prime minister position which could be used to
get me something
to placate maybe Kalonzo if they feel it's that important. For Kalonzo, it's not that it's important. It is a feeling of betrayal. There will be a very strong feeling of betrayal.
Yeah.
And Raila may end his political career in a very bad way. Surely you cannot, as a statesman, whom people have looked up as a very serious Kenyan, betray others in that manner. So that's why they will be playing under the table. But again, there are people who believe Kalonzo could also be part of the game by now. Yeah.
He's already been roped in.
Yeah. He could say, okay, we craft something.
You get something out of this.
You could be the prime minister or something, and then Raila could step back and maybe say one of the small people in the family, like
still
Winnie.
Lead by proxy. Lead by proxy.
It will get to a place, it will be open.
Have somebody else.
At some point, it will be open. Once I think to me, and this is not to scare the Kikuyu or Gachagua, I think the strategy is to contain the mountain first. Once you've contained it sufficiently, and while at the same time getting sufficient confidence that Nyanza and Western are going to play along, then you can become a little open as you tell Gachagua, we are still here, my friend. There's no problem. But this is politics. Vile moja aliambia Saitoti, wewe ni rafiki yangu lakini. It is possible. And I think it is going to make this politics very interesting. Because the moment the cat gets out of the bag, and it won't be long.
It's a big issue.
You see this Nyanza tour. Gachagua has also been watching. Just like CT is saying, anybody watching will conclude that Raila's hand was in it.
There's something happening. So we are talking, for example, about if there's a possibility of some good conversation having taken place between the main leaders politically, Raila on one hand and Ruto on the other. And then now we see Kalonzo is a co-chair of the ongoing Bomas talks. So let's say he's also a beneficiary of whatever outcome of this. What happens to people like Martha Karua?
In politics, a very common characteristic and which defines what we call successful politicians, and that's how Moi was defined in 1990 by a top UK paper. They say when the reason why Moi was going to win to go to succeed at a time to look like he would not. It was that one single characteristic of using people and just then doing like this and they fall down and you don't look behind. What he did to
So
enjoy.
not dumping.
Yeah, what he did to enjoy.
Just doing like this.
So throwing Rigathi Gachagua under the bus and people like Martha Karua, that will be nothing. It's normal in for those that they'll be the victims.
Herman,
The casualties.
Herman,
Collateral damage.
Herman. Moi had an interesting trait, if I may append to what you're saying. Yes, you would be dropped by the wayside, but you would be rehabilitated.
Slowly.
Yes, you would be brought back into the fold.
As something else.
As something else. In fact, you yourself, I think, you will be something completely different. But you will be brought back into the fold. But there's something else which is also peculiar to our politics. We now have a situation where we keep talking about these amalgamations of parties. Okay? Now, if what we're saying is a likelihood, then I would dare say that when Jeremiah Kioni and Martha Karua said that they were starting a new movement.
Kamwene.
Yes, a movement, not a political party.
No.
It appears that they have understood. Because if you have an outfit that is supported by a large body of people, it gives you bargaining position. Meaning, if indeed what we're saying is a likelihood that Raila and Ruto have a thing going on, they would realize, well, it's open season. Why don't we set up our own little craft? After all, we have a nice relationship with Raila here, and say, folk, why don't we do this so that we get some votes from Central Kenya, so that when we talk as this, so that Central doesn't feel that they've been left out of this.
That's where it is headed. And that will make 2027 sometimes interesting, because Raila and Ruto may think they can work together with Kalonzo and have a boardroom deal for 2027. Elections are mere formality. But Mount Kenya can rebel against that. Mount Kenya, if they go together and produce one strong candidate, it can mess that plan of theirs. Yeah.
Big time.
Big time. Because you see, people who start with the sort of numbers Mount Kenya has, they are very dangerous to deal with. They put on the table at once 5 million or 6 million votes. Pop! And when they are under siege, if this deal isolates the Gema people, the Mount Kenya people, the sort of votes they will throw on the table in 2027 will scare everybody. Yeah, they can throw something on the table that is like a bomb. Boom! Paga Raila na Ruto wanastuka.
It disrupts
It's
others.
possible. And I think 2027 may be very interesting, because isolating the Mount Kenya seems to be on the table.
You know, Moi understood this, because the one thing that Moi did, if you recall, with the advent of multi-party, it was like tailor-made for him. He made sure that every region had a presidential candidate at some point or the other. Now, he split the Central Kenya vote. He split it. Now, the moment you split that vote, then you have a good chance, as Herman says. If that vote is unified,
You have a problem.
it's a very strong bargaining block.
Another thing, City, you'd remember, because you and I were there, you could have been slightly younger, but you were there. It is obvious in this country, and Jaramogi Oginga saw it from the word go. To cheat yourself that you can lead this country, minus the Kikuyu being in the mix somewhere, is to make a big mistake.
Okay.
So if anybody comes up with a deal that isolates Mount Kenya, they will have it very rough.
How about one that splits Mount Kenya?
Yeah, splitting is possible. Last year they were almost near split. Raila got 800,000 votes, even with the rigging people talk about. That's big. That is big. 800, almost a million. If you add on from Nakuru, the Gema people gave Raila over 1 million votes. The way the election was.
Yeah.
Some people will argue, if the election was clean, perhaps it was double that number. And perhaps Ruto got less what he got.
Or
from
maybe if it was clean, it was less,
So-
half that number.
So you can, and that is why Latiff, then the election produced the results it produced. If we ignore
The noise,
and-
everything else.
it is just the right result. That is 7 million each, 50-50. And this would not have been the case if Raila didn't get to split the mountain vote.
Yeah. So, I mean, the real politic, as we're looking at all of this, is very interesting. And we speak about a few people here. because max 25 people are the ones that make up this conversation.
On the dealing paper, on the table, the dealing paper.
On the table, right?
It doesn't have the crowd there.
Exactly. However, the fate and livelihoods of 50 million people hang in the balance when these conversations are being had, when these amalgamations of political players come together or leave each other by the side. So I want to make the connection, and I hope you can help me do that, between what this matters then for Kenyans, how it matters for Kenyans when these political divides or communions are being made. Kenyans' livelihoods and lives hang in the balance. Kenya's children, a workforce which is threatened, an economy which is depressed, young people who go to school, and etc., etc. Make the connection of the importance between these political unions and the 50 million Kenyans who are looking to be governed over and for whom livelihoods secured are very important.
First of all, from a very general point of view, and this is global, the modern state is an apparatus to be used by a few people to exercise power, feel big, get resources, become rich, have holidays. The modern state is not an arrangement to work for the people. Never. It has never been. It's just like, even kingdoms were better. At least the king, much as the people were slaves or serfs, always thought about them. Yeah. And you could see in the configuration of the kingdom a place for the serfs or the peasants or whatever. The modern state, any modern state. That's why the only time you have people at the center of things is when there's a revolution. Yeah. But it's so short of a revolution. These elections we have, these are members of the same club. Raila, Ruto, Kalonzo, they belong to the same club.
They're in the same room.
Those differences are artificial to make us believe actually there is a contest between them, and that when one wins, we will be better off, which is an illusion, but that is how it works. But I think there's a bigger picture here. The bigger thing here is that in history, sometimes this game has been called out by the small people. And I believe in this country, we could get to a point, because of the hardships people are facing, when people ignore these politicians and just a man or woman comes up and people support him for the presidency, that time may not be very far from now. Because from this current, like she's saying, this current team of people, there's nobody who can think about Kenyans. Nothing. If you ask them to tell you one thing they can do as a departure from the past that can work for the people, none of them has even won. I enjoyed the debate of 2013, presidential debate. These guys were asked what would be the minimum pay, because at that time this issue of salary was quite on the mind of Kenyans. It was quite a big thing. We were now entering the phase where we are. We began entering this serious money economy, and where international players affect us and the things affect us. And they were asked, what do you everybody, including Raila, they scattered around it. Nobody wanted to say anything.
No, not to comment.
No, they cannot say anything for the common man. None of them can say anything, because there are policies in this country. There are policies which you put in place in this country, and the life of the people change immediately. Immediately. Employment, you get it down by over 67% if you stop China and other people from dumping things in this country, and therefore people will produce those things in this country. Just one pronouncement from State House. Uhuru tried it on fish. He was told, Akambia, keep quiet. Uhuru said, even fish the Chinese are bringing. Hey, I think you're someone. I said, what are you talking about? Someone tried to put 25%, which was an East African tariff, on a mitumba. Kenya was told, why? It's only Kagame who ignored the Uncle Sam and went ahead and put that tariff on mitumba. So there are things which none of these people can implement as policy to change the lives of people, even in the simplest way.
Can't or don't
So they're the same people, I'm sorry.
Can't or don't want to, or are not able to.
Sometimes, the way, the way you are configured, These people are a product of our system. You get it? As we move towards independence, there's a class of Kenyans, okay, who are alienated from the rest of the society. They have benefits like going to school. Their fathers are missionary people. Their fathers have been roped in. They are teachers. They are this. So the Starehe model that produced, unknown some of us, Starehe was there to produce leaders who think in a certain way. So these people are using that Starehe model of thinking. When they see Kibra, they see voters.
As opposed to an opportunity.
No, they don't see.
Actually serve the people.
No, because you can remove Kibra within 5 years.
They see votes.
Yeah, so the question continues to be that everybody knows. Look, I mean, it's splashed all over the media. We looked at it over the weekend, and it just becomes then the stuff for conversation whereby, all right, Nyanza is being wooed by the president for future. And again, certain things are happening, certain, alliances then come crumbling down. But then we fail to get to the heart of the matter here, that perhaps those are just smoke screen politics that are being used to hide from the real problems that Kenya is facing today. And if we can see it, then everybody else must be able to see it, and that Kenyans are living and surviving in spite of this. It is soon going to get to a place where Kenyans will live and operate despite the government, despite its leaders. And like you say, an individual will come up and everybody will then essentially rally their support behind this individual. Because then I dare say, and I'd like to hear what you think, that I dare say that if Kenyans today were getting the very bare minimum of what they needed, that you did not have a truckload of taxes on your back, that you were able, and I'm going to, like a broken record, absolutely yes, that you walk into hospital today and that you get what you're looking for, that you're secure that all the country's children, for whom it is their right, get an education that is sound, that will compete anywhere. I dare say that Kenyans would leave the government alone.
They would.
Kenyans don't care. Do your political thing. But Kenyans are involved in this process today, whether it is in thought or speech, on social media, in barazas, because they are searching clearly for somebody who is going to come, and that those needs which are not met will be put front and center. But the conversation is around who's better today, who will throw their support behind somebody else. And it must shift from that.
It can. And I you know what? Looking at this country today, the way things are going, I've been telling people, if you go to the countryside and you are not for a week and you don't go into depression, then you are a product of this system. Because it builds builds a wall around you can't see.
You can't see.
To demonstrate this, what the white people were doing to the black people in America without feeling. You get it? What happens to you, Latiff, when it is raining outside and somebody is shaking outside, you are a watchman, and you pay him 10,000, and your dog, you spend 30,000 on your dog. That thing, the inability to feel, to see the pain of other people. So if you don't have it and you walk into the countryside today, you'll go into depression. The suffering is real, is immense. People gather around a loved one, they watch him die because there's nowhere to take them, and they don't have money. Somebody called me from America recently, and he told me, Manyora, sometimes you like exaggerating. Are you telling me in this day and age, Kenyan children have jiggers in their toes? I told him, yes, come and see.
Like, really?
There are many. They are not 10,000. They are not 100,000 children. Today, if you told children in Kenya, all of you, bring your feet to Angalia, how many have jiggers? In the 21st century. So they don't feel. And that's exactly what she's saying. And what I'm trying to say, and what I've been telling leaders, and what other people, including Uhuru Kenyatta, including Obama when he was here, you are inviting a revolution. So that revolution, we may be lucky it may not come in the violent way. It may come by the way of people seizing the power themselves and giving it to a person whom they believe is not like those other people.
What would it take, though?
It will take sometimes it takes just the
Because the suffering that we're talking about is not new. This is a suffering that has been there for generations. It's been there. People are born, grow up in this kind of suffering. They go to a point where, like Ndu is saying, you get by in spite of the government. There's a government somewhere, but you know how you survive. So what will it take for people to actually say, look, all of you people belong to the same class and we want a different group of people. We want things done differently?
Yes, people suffer and they continue living, and they may live, let government do what they want and we live. But it's going to a point where you can't ignore, where it's not possible for you not to feel it. It's getting to a point where it's just too much. Now, the workers who have always been watching from aside on TV, and they are now feeling what other people have been feeling, because they have invaded the payslip to the point somebody, there's a clip going around, watch basi serikali ichukue mshahara, si tuchukue taxes. That's where it has gotten. It's gotten to a point where it's about to burst. Katapasuka na katanuka. But that's where it is. And what I want to say is, you see when things get here, but to address what you're saying, that people can go on and people have been suffering, like Latiff says, anyway. Look at the history of revolutions and violent change, including the French Revolution. It is not enough for people to suffer. That they can do for centuries.
Yeah.
But there is something called consciousness. The moment people become conscious of their problem and they know who is the source of their problem, it is the end of the reign for those people in power. That's why if you look at the South African struggle, the whites were not so bothered about people like Mandela who had Robin. They were worried about people like Chris Hani, people like Steve Biko. Black consciousness. That's why people like Bob Marley were killed. I believe Bob Marley was killed. Because he's pricking people, say, look here, man, you can't continue living. You have the power in your hands. You can change this thing. The moment the people become conscious. And I think if you look at the social media in this country, it may not be a very good indicator. But if you look at the social media, if you read papers, if you interact with Kenyans, we are reaching that level of consciousness. If you look at the way border people react when there are these riots, how they can quickly organize and offer some resistance they would never have done some few years ago, it tells you the people in power must know that mark we have almost reached it, if we have not reached it, where the people are not just suffering, but they are conscious of their suffering. You see, when people think that's part of life, then you are okay, because people live centuries being slaves. They think it's normal. You get it?
And if they also think that there's no way out,
or even if they doubt a bit, it may not be normal, but is there a way out? No. So they continue. But once they know this is not normal,
and there's a way
we are
out.
told, why did the Mau Mau start fighting? We are told it's because Kenyan soldiers who went to fight in the Second World War, they saw Mzungu writhing in pain
and dying,
bleeding and dying, and calling Mama, oh Mama, Mom.
A past impossibility.
These are human beings. And when people guys came back and said, "La, we were thinking these guys were gods.
These guys are just like us."
So the moment people and I've been telling leaders in this country and the rich, the moment the people in Madare look yonder, because there's only a valley separating, a small river, Madare thing, and they look at Mudaiga and they know you are the source of their problem, you not live there.
Things will change.
Of course.
Do you think City has been saying this during the campaigns, that the Hustler campaign was, taking us to a different direction and different sphere? Do you think that William Ruto actually opened that Pandora's box by creating that consciousness, by talking about, the hustler?
There was the risk.
That you as a person, you as the lowly person, you have a right to this government as those other people who have been running government.
That was.
So it opened that consciousness.
It's the risk he took, and it took him to State House. But it can be what can consume them. Just look at another revolution. You start something and it consumes you.
Actually, that is always the.
That's why Mungiki, they do not call him Solo, people are calling this thing Mungiki. That's why Maina Jenga can be a very dangerous cog. That's why I would advise Ruto and Raila, if they are working together, to be very careful about isolating the Mount Kenya people. Because that Maina Jenga movement, if it is embraced, and let's say Raila has realized that Uhuru wasn't as helpful to him as he should have been.
Yeah.
And therefore is willing to work with Ruto. And the Uhuru is aware. And now you can see Rigathi Gachagua saying, I'm going to talk to Uhuru. You think it is by coincidence?
No.
That he's just talking. They know they are being isolated, perhaps, and they move together. And they wouldn't mind using people like Maina Jenga now to mobilize the ground. That Pandora box you are talking about, what comes out of that will not only be in Mount Kenya, it will spill over to the rest of the country, because there's a huge class of these desperados.
In fact, Herman has hit the nail on the head, because, you see, consciousness doesn't know boundaries or tribes.
Yes.
Once a certain group of people understand that we have the same problem,
Yes.
then that tribal barrier
Almost disappears.
It'll disappear because now the commonality of the issues they have will take center stage.
You're a new tribe.
Yes, exactly.
And what she's saying now, that these are just players shifting from how Raila here or Ruto here, Kalonzo. People are able to see that. When people are conscious, they know why they are suffering. They're able to see those games. And that's why I was saying it is quite possible. Somebody can. And that's why some countries are producing, including DJs, to become president. Yeah. When people say, what want to chase our? Then
Let's
they get somebody
else.
different.
A total outsider.
Yeah, an outsider, a rank outsider says, okay, fine. That's how people like Trump also became president.
Indeed.
Because people in Washington are the same people. And the Trump was going against that.
During
They
the
say this
song.
guy seems to be speaking our language. And that's why even now they have a problem dealing with him. Because the same problem still exists. People have discovered Washington is just a club.
But you know something, Herman, if you think about it historically, we see what Ruto did. It made us exactly what Raila did.
Yes.
Because he was a much younger Raila. He rebelled against even the very foundation of what his father had said.
Yes.
And he said, no. He differed. Remember, in the election that followed, all the old stalwarts who had supported Jaramogi and who had been known as leaders in Luo land failed.
Yeah. Raila's put on a new crop of people.
Precisely.
This rebellion is very attractive to the people. Like I said, that's why Ruto became a darling of many people, especially in the Rift Valley, almost everybody. The rebellion. The common person on the ground, he feels the person who feels them. And how does that play out? When you rebel against established order. And this is going to play out in this country. So I think leaders in this country have been very careful. We are toying, like you said, that Pandoras Box Ruto opened by telling people, you have been suffering. But what have you done to their suffering?
You've actually you've aggravated it further.
Yes.
Yes.
Because the only reason why the hustler thing has not burst, the bubble is still floating in the air, is because the Mount Kenya people, who are suffering most in terms of the hustlers, are yet to come out. If those people came out and say this was a big con, it will spread like Muga is saying. I'm telling you, you will feel it at the coast, Nyanza, Western. And these leaders in this country will find it very rough dealing with the hustlers on the ground. And the hustlers, like Muga says, will be united first by their knowledge that they are being conned.
Is that why Gachagua is a worried man?
He's worried because the game is getting out of the control of these people.
It's gone beyond them, actually.
Yeah. The game could get out of
Because
control.
he brought together these hustlers
Yes, he
and
did.
told them something.
Yes, he did.
And he cannot tell them anything
Nothing
else.
is happening. He can't tell them. He can't even face them now.
He's telling them, now let's pray.
Yeah, let's pray.
The worst possible
And we may
thing,
have a plate of
the worst
rice.
possible thing that can happen to a political leader is for you to get elected. Because then people know they have put you in a position to do the things you said you would do.
Yes.
And then you realize those things are not as easy to do as you thought.
Yes.
My friend, how do you backpedal?
And it becomes worse when this is happening in an ecosystem or in an environment where it is clear the Mount Kenya are being isolated in national politics. Man, it can be very dangerous.
It will become something else.
But we shall pray for the country.
We'll wait and see. Falling apart, are they not? The president has been in Nyanza for a couple of days. We'll see what's happening, like MANYORA is saying. So there's conversations happening in Bomas. Yeah, the Bomas conversation. They said the outcome is clear.
It's clear.
Kalonzo will be leader of official opposition. There will be some 15 billion shillings that will be earmarked for, mahindi, kununua mahindi hapa na pale,
Yes,
and the other. And then Musalia will get lifelong pension. The prime cabinet secretary.
Yes. Like that, like na hivyo. Lakini raia wanaweza kuona hiyo game waseme hii
Enough.
Hawajaona game.
Ngoja. The only way they can play it without a problem is if they don't isolate Mount Kenya.
Let's see. Herman, always a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.